Everyone, welcome, welcome. Today is Friday, March the 18th. It's already the 18th, the third week of March. Can you believe it? Spring is in the air, everyone. I can smell it. We are here at Living Healthy List. One of the things that we provide is a free coaching Friday. And what's beautiful about free coaching Friday is this is your opportunity to ask questions and really understand what coaching can be. So my featured expert today is Susan Axelrod. Susan is a confidence coach and so much more. I'm going to actually have her tell you a little bit more about who she is and what she does, rather than me reading a bio, because that always seems very static. There's so much more that we do that our bio never reflects. So Susan, welcome to Free Coaching Friday. And I'd love for you to just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do and the person that you help best.
Thank you. Hi, Denise. Hi, Diane. Good to see you. I'm happy to be here today. Denise, before I do a self-bio, let me just ask you, of the times that we've had personal conversations with each other, has there been any time that you have felt more confident at the end of a conversation than the beginning?
When I've talked with you?
Yeah.
Absolutely every single time.
So,
every single time.
Yeah, thank you so much. I also don't read any kind of bio. I have various bios created because corporations want them or people think they're necessary. But the truth is, I'm in what I call the intuitive business. When experience and expertise crosses over with your soul and your passion, intuition rises, and that's where you are most deeply in your impact space. All those things need to be in place, combined with not being afraid of sales. And so whether it's in life or business, we're usually selling something. And so the work that I do every day is mostly one-to-one coaching with women in the second half of life, although recently I've had a couple of men clients, one age 34, one age 69, and increasingly some younger working women are finding me. They're working mothers who find me through my organic marketing, and I do just a holistic approach with them. We talk about everything from sex to bonuses and raises. And so that's really where I bring together confidence in life and business. Over 15 years now, I have been working in the online business model because that many years ago or more, as my sister will tell you, you sat on my deck, she says, and told me that you want to be able to do your work wherever you are, including traveling, being with family and friends, and still being able to do your work and get paid. So every now and then I ask her to remind me of that because that is the life that I'm living now. I do my work wherever I am, no matter what time zone I'm in, because confidence can't wait. I am fierce about supporting women in business in particular because more and more women are leaving the corporate world and going into business themselves, but most of them are not generating any income at all or enough income to be sustainable. So I start with life. Denise, you and I were talking for a few minutes before we went live, and I usually start with life. As you said, to be confident in business, you need to be confident in life. So I often do what I call soul intelligence. I really work with people to go deep down, in and down. That's what I do, and really open things up and find their confidence space. And then we come back up, and then we go out and wide into business impact. So that's just a little bit about me. I have two adult daughters whom I love and adore. I went to a women's college. I went to a girls' camp, summer camp. And that's why I'm very fierce about working with women. I have recently had men find me in business, and I'm happy to work with them, but only if they're interested in learning about feminine energy in balance with masculine energy. So that's just a little bit, Denise.
Well, thank you, Susan. I think it's so important that, the depth and the breadth that you work with your clients, because it's not just one piece. It's very similar to when I work with my clients in when it comes to health and wellness. We start with diet, but that is only one small piece of it. And we know that as soon as we start, digging a little deeper, that there's something else going on that's not on the surface, but yet as soon as you touch on it and clear it, that confidence level grows. So when we talk about confidence, a lot of people say, well, yeah, sure, I'm confident in who I am and what I'm doing. But then I'm sure people come to you that say that, yet in your conversations with them, you find that maybe that's not exactly true, or maybe it's more of and I'm guilty of this, a bit of a front. So let's talk about those clients.
Yeah, personal fraud, imposter syndrome. I deal with these things all the time. But I do want to say that because of the organic marketing method that I developed and have been using for so many years, it's not true that most people come to me and already feel confident. Most of my clients come to me and hire me because they have heard me talk, they've read what I've written, or they've been personally referred, and they actually know that they lack confidence in one area or another. And I say in life or in business. And so that's one thing about being in business when you know your market, when you're deep in, I call it the spout of the funnel, right?
Mhm.
I'm out my spout. And so people who find me often don't feel confident. Now, however, it is true, Denise, that when we work together, there often is uncovered an area where they thought they might be confident, but they realize that the stuff going on down under the surface is shaky, right? It's not secure. And this is when personal fraud or imposter syndrome happens, when you're what we call above the surface, right? Where your head is above the water and underneath you're like treading, right? Doing the doggy
Mhm.
paddle. And again, I infuse soul intelligence into my work. And when I say soul connection, what I mean is this. When you can take a breath where that goes all the way down to your core, and you can comfortably, confidently know that you are on point in life and or in business, that's what we call soul connection. There's many little soul personas in us that start from the time we're born, actually, and certainly through the time of our childhood. And for women, through the age of young adulthood, when we're mauled and grabbed and hissed at and whistled at and talked at in inappropriate ways. There's soul personas that go in, right? They go down like this. And that happens to 100%. 100% of women I speak with when we get to an honest, sometimes difficult place, we'll be able to share something that happened in their childhood. And sometimes it's not malicious and not intended. It's not that, but that they heard something happened, they experienced something. I just said this on my live the other day. I had a client who was 50 years old, who in her work with me had a total revelation that she acted now in such a way based on something that an older boyfriend said to her when she was 21. It was total epiphany. She was like, "What's happening here?" She said, "I didn't even remember that. It was something he said to
Mhm.
her. It wasn't rape or anything, God forbid, or anything like that. It was something he said about her personality." And so this is the kind of thing that happens. And so the soul
Mhm.
connection work I do is what leads to the confidence, because you're healing the soul along the way. And yes, that is how you can confidently, you know, grow your business voice, use your
Mhm.
throat chakra to grow your business voice. So that definitely happens. I do soul healing work, even in my business confidence work. And my soul healing work personally that I do with confidence coaching clients in life leads to business and outcomes and productivity because people have, they feel
Mhm.
connected.
Yeah, it's so important to realize that life and business really do go together. And it's interesting when you said about this client of yours who it was something that an old boyfriend said when she was 21. As soon as you said that, I had a thought of what somebody said to me, an old boyfriend said to me. And for years, it really bothered me. And I haven't thought about it for 30, 20, 25 years.
Mm,
What he said was, Denise, you dress really plain. I think he meant I dressed more conservative than probably most 21 or 22-year-old girls did back at the time. And I did. I dressed more conservatively. Obviously, I dress a little bit more conservatively than some. That when you said that, all of a sudden that thought came to my mind, and I don't know, kind of, I don't
yeah.
know if it's bothering me or if
No,
it's something.
it just came up. I call it, it showed itself to
Yeah,
you.
a recognition.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it showed itself to you. And then the question is, at your delicate age, whatever it is, you don't need to say if you don't want to, but let's call it in our maturity. When something like that shows itself to us, then we can see it through the lens of our maturity. And honestly, this would be an inner child healing that I would do. Not that there was a break for you, but since it showed itself to you just now, then I would have you look through directly to that soul persona of that younger woman, whenever that was for you,
She's in
and
college.
college age woman, very pivotal years, and love her and let her know it's okay. It's okay that you dress in a conservative way. It's good for you, or whatever it would be. I'm not,
Mm-hmm.
we would explore that a little bit. What would you say to that person in your mature years? Or I call this Dear Younger Self and Dear Future Self. My last book was called Dear Younger Self. My next book coming out is going to be called Dear Future Self. And that is one way that we can heal those, I call them soul personas. It's also called the inner child, which in my early type A, mentally imbalanced days, I used to mock those things. And now I work with those things because I am fierce about supporting women to have sustainable, productive, thriving lives instead of living the sort of dimmed
Mm-hmm.
existence with the closed shoulders. For me, I'm in the open shoulder stance. Lift up, pull back. This is confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I would say about that.
Well, thank you for that. The conversation about the inner child is always interesting because I've only recently understood that more and more. And I've gone through a program where we wrote a letter to our younger self. We wrote a letter to our older self, kind of looking back. And it was at that stage, this was probably about 4 years ago, maybe, that I understood that a little bit more. I still think most people, like, I still don't completely understand the connection, but I'm
So
seeing it more and more.
let's get right to this. First of all, I want to give a shout out to the Cornelia Stephanie Media Group. Cornelia Stephanie and Nadine Searle have a podcast called Self-Realization
Mhm.
and the Inner Child. It can be found on either of their YouTube channels. We can tag that in the comments.
Mhm.
It can also be found on the KS Media Group app. And when I learned that they were talking about this, I myself contacted Cornelia Stephanie and said, may I please be a financial sponsor for this podcast because of my own opening and realization about the work with the inner child. So let's get really right to this. And I want to say hello to Diane and Monica. Thank you for joining us in this conversation today. I just want to go through this a little bit, and then I want to open it up for your questions or comments, rebuttals, as I always say.
Perfect.
So here's the thing. Denise, is it okay if we use what you just shared with me about the college age
Absolutely.
women?
Absolutely.
I call college women because most college women are having sex. And the distinction that I make is if you're having sex, I don't care if you're 13, you're a woman. Okay? Let's be clear. If you're choosing, you think you're choosing to, and in college, okay. So the woman, when we talk about the idea of what's called the inner child, this is Susan's interpretation. I'm just one person. I'm not the ultimate expert. This is just the way I look at it. And I just want to, do a little revelation on this. So, Denise, when you're in college, you're 18, 19, 20, 21-ish, right? Ish. So now you're not that age, you're older. And so that would be a child persona for you. Not a little child baby persona, but that's a child persona for you. Let's just say you were 19 years old. You're, freshman to sophomore in college, and some boyfriend said something to you. And then you told us at that time, it got stuck in you a little bit, and you thought about it for years, I think you said, right? So the actual example here is that 19-year-old girl woman. I call the girls in high school, and in college it's kind of like girl woman, to woman. That would be an inner child of you. Anything younger than your current self is a child. And so she felt that, you're 19, you're not hot and floozy, not judging, just describing that style of dress. And you're dressing more conservatively, as you said, and the boyfriend made a comment about it. That child woman, that girl woman, already had her own thoughts about her identity, herself, and how she presented, how she wanted to present, etc. All those things were all thoughts in her. And then somebody important said something to you, and it went like this, right? And then you questioned yourself. Should I dress hotter? Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do the other thing? Right? You're questioning yourself. Would that be accurate to say?
Absolutely.
Right. And so, but that thought is like, now this is this is not, God forbid, the most horrible example, but it is an actual example. Of course, there's much more traumatic examples than this, but the thought captured around you, that was a child soul persona. Not a young child, but an 18, 19-year-old girl woman child. And then the thought went like this. And what happened was you went down, the thought pushed you down a little bit, and you got deep in. And then eventually you cleared it, or whatever you said. You had it for years, which would mean that it was mitigated later on. But that's what we're talking about. Now go to a 6-year-old girl child who's being molested. Now go to a 10-year-old girl child who came out of her power phase. 6, 7, 8 years old is like power girl, 6, 7, 8 years old. And now not having anything terribly traumatic happen, but they're being subjected to media, big sisters, the big older cousins, boys who are teasing girls who are getting breasts, not intended to be malicious, but a girl child, you know what I'm saying?
Very much so.
And those are the inner child personas that I'm talking about. And it goes like this and like this and like this. I don't need to go. I think I saw heads nodding yes. So you guys get what I'm talking about. And that suppresses our confidence because your soul sinks. And so the soul clearing, the healing, the soul intelligence that I bring in my work is let's clear her, because we want to unleash girl power in
Girl
the woman.
power.
Yeah, girl power, exactly.
I like
in
the girl
woman.
power.
Yeah. I have capes also. I don't have access to them right now. If I had known we were going to talk about that, I'd be wearing one of my capes. And so that's what I mean. That's my personal interpretation of the inner child. And that's an example. Now, I'm not a therapist, so, I'm not going to be doing, trauma healing for, somebody who was molested, or, this comes up in my work, like probably, I don't really know, at least 50% of the time, probably more than that, women reveal to me what happened to them when they were girls. So I just want to be
one of the beautiful things here at Living Healthy List is that may not be your expertise, but I know we have experts who, are in that field. And that's what I love about what we do here with Living Healthy List is I might not be the right person to help someone, but I have this incredible network of women, mostly women, and a few smart men who I can, refer people to and feel feel confident that is that person is the right
Honestly,
one for
I
the
have to
client.
tell you, yes, times 100 to that. That is what I also love about Living Healthy List. I'm a new expert with Living Healthy List this year. I've just been getting to know people in the group. Now, my friend Diane McClay, who joined us today, I'm also within another group, so I know her even better. But I do agree, this is one of the reasons I love cohorts and collaboratives. Absolutely. So let me ask Monica and Diane, is anything coming up for you? Is there anything you would like to ask or to participate in the discussion here? Monica unmuted right away.
Well, I'm muted just so I will be prepared whenever that came up. So, but I will say that one of the things when I started my weight loss journey, and I was pretty much far in. So I was at this point, I was actually speaking on platforms. And one of the things I said is I needed to thank the full size, voluptuous woman that carried me through, because she hid who I needed to be until I was ready to be shown.
Mm.
And what she hid was something all the way from childhood, all the way up until I was ready to deal with it. And one of the things that I share with my clients or even just friends is a lot of times, as we know, weight loss has very little to do with the scale. And as we start to go down the scale or to become healthier, what we start to realize are points that took us to where we didn't want to go.
Mm.
And one of the things I would say, like my favorite candy bar growing up was a Three Musketeer. I haven't eaten a Three Musketeer probably in 20 years because I realized I never liked the Three Musketeer. It was the first thing I put in my mouth after a traumatic experience. Therefore, it became a comfort from that traumatic experience. But once I unveiled that traumatic experience, I no longer needed the pacifier, the Three Musketeer, to get me through that piece. And I think once we start dealing with the root cause of those issues, then we're able to make another step forward. I will give you a real-time explanation of just these last 2 weeks. I was asked to step down as a volunteer at work for a major organization. And it was because the organizer, the representative from the organization, called a friend on our leadership team and was not pleased with not getting what they wanted because of logistics and the pandemic and all these other things. And so they called me up without a discussion, shared with me the decision. Then they wanted me to have a discussion. I said, I cannot have a discussion when a decision has already been made. And
I know. I'm like, I love you for that, Monica. Go ahead. Yeah, I
so
love
when
you for
they
that.
kept pressing me for the discussion, I said, I have nothing to add. And they wanted to know why I had nothing to add. I said, because you came to me with a decision. And I said, I'm done. I said, unless there's a reason why we need to continue this on, maybe then we need to discuss about when my lawyer needs to show up. And they were like, okay, we're done. Because at that, we recognize this crossroads once we become
Well,
comfortable.
we didn't recognize it. You recognized it. You recognized the crossroad confidently, Diane.
Confidently.
I want to actually incorporate we. The way I'm hearing this conversation is the we with Monica includes all of her little soul pieces.
Yes.
That little girl that might have been injured earlier is like, no way, not doing that again. The older woman is like, no way, I've already learned from this. So I would argue that we is
We is
actually
we.
really appropriate. She doesn't mean we, the three of us. She
It's
means we,
right, the
all
royal
of
we.
her, to your language, her collective soul pieces
Yeah.
that have been healed, that might still need some healing, all showed up at the board meeting and they took a vote and said, not today, not now, not again. Am
Right.
I hearing that right, Monica? Am I
You
interpreting that
summed it up perfectly.
Right. And
right?
It was the child that wasn't heard by her mother. It was the person who had been persecuted before. Be honest, it was the Black woman that had to show up halfway to only get part way, to only be taken out because of something that had nothing to do with her.
Right. So this is where, I love it, Diane. I do that all the time because I know about the soul personas. We call it the royal we, like all of us, in us. And so, Monica, let me check in with you and ask, can you feel confidence rising even in your sharing the story with us? Would you say that confidence was what it took to step into that space?
It was confidence, and it was also fear. The fearful part was I had never done this at this level to people that had control of my income. But when I said it, I felt 100% confident in my statement because I knew it to be true. I then got fearful on the retaliation that may come with it. And then I had to say, if you speak your truth, you cannot be fearful. And I had to just reside in that. But it took a couple of nights, sleepless nights, to get okay with my decision to stand up for myself, by myself, within myself. So yes, Diane, you hit the nail on the head. Every little girl, every mid-adult decision showed up in my 52-year-old self on that moment and said, I'm not having another conversation. I have more power in my silence than I do in my speaking.
So, what I want to say is this, remember what I said before, confidence as we mature, right, shows up if we clear and open and see. I said to Denise, using today's lens to love and hug and support that, let's say, that 19-year-old young woman. And so, Monica, I'm going to be 60 this year. I can't believe it, but I am. And you're 52, you just revealed. And so to me, my 52-year-old self is a younger soul persona. And as I work on my own confidence, my own clearing, my soul connection, right? And also my business structure. And I want to address that in a second because you said you were fearful about losing business. I want to let you know that this year's theme is, of course, with Living Healthy List is resilience. And so you are in a period, I don't know when this happened, you said just recently or whatever, in a period where we're actually in resilience building because you overcame that, right? And you're going to be 60, sorry, but you are. Sorry, but it's going to happen. And you're going to have had this experience. And if we could understand how this all works together, then that's one of the ways that as we mature, we can be more confident, equaling overcoming fears, more impactful, more sure, more secure, more definite, more precise, more intuitive in our business, for example, and life. Then that's what you're in right now, growing to that later. And you honored all of the younger girls also in you. So, do you see that progression that I'm talking about there, Monica?
Not only did I see it, I felt it in that moment. And again, this was honestly, it was just last week.
Okay, it was recent. Yeah.
Oh, it's very fresh. But when I because when I returned to the office, there were some things I decided to do in returning to the office. And one of them was to be my authentic self. If you have not read about African American women and the code switching life that we live, it is very stressful.
Mm.
And there's a great podcast called Code Switch that is on NPR that if you have never been introduced to it, but it is very stressful. And I decided I'm not coming back and I'm not going to do a lot of code switching.
Mm.
And I did recognize that that was going to be an issue for those around me, for me to stand up to be okay with me.
Mm.
And I am embracing that, not just in how I show up, but what I look like when I show up.
Mm.
I am wearing African garb, African fabrics, African necklaces. I am embracing my heritage publicly
Mm-hmm. And confidently.
and confidently.
And that really, you said, I was really listening so deeply. I usually I write exact words and I remember, but I was listening so deeply because I wrote down your comment. Code switching is the lived experience by Black women. But you said something about not, that others would have to deal with you or whatever. You said something about that others would have to deal with you. I'm like, honestly, Monica, no, they don't.
Well,
They,
that's true, they don't.
right, they don't. But who has to deal with you? You has to deal with you. And that is the basis of my confidence coaching, absolutely to a T. You can try and try and try. Whenever I use the word try, it has quotation marks around it because trying is failing. But you can be who you are, do what you do, be the best that you are, and those other people can still be who they are. It's out of your control. There's nothing you can do about it, I'm a Jew, so I have my own sorts of experience that I have. Other people have disabilities. Today I'm going live with an amazing woman, Evie Lennon, who is the chronic conditions chaplain, who has her own experience with chronic conditions, amazing experience, and I'm have this conversation with her, and I'm learning from her on that issue. We can only be who we can be, and not control how others can be. And we want to show up in African garb, in African jewelry, with African art, with your heritage, confidently, not obnoxiously. Nobody wants anyone to be obnoxious about anything they are, confidently. And that's now, oh, you could feel that right there, right? Can you feel that? Yeah. Yeah, without fearing or worrying. I know about your lived experience, Monica. I've been making a study of it for many, many years. My skin is white. I don't pretend that it's not. So I don't say I know, but I observe. I'm committed to learning what I can. But do you see what I'm saying here?
Oh, and it's very funny because and ironic that you mentioned you're Jewish, and with the Black and Jewish experience,
Relations. Hmm.
and I used to belong to an organization called the Black and Jewish Youth Experience, and even in my spirituality, I deal with a lot of the high holy days and the Israeli and the Judaic experience.
Hmm.
But with that, it is a very similar lived experience, minus the opportunity for assimilation.
I'm aware of this,
Yeah.
Monica, just to
And
go.
yeah, and it's kind of the very interesting piece of it all about being that whole person that you are.
Yeah.
So Purim was Wednesday. And so I get to the office and I say something about Purim. They're all looking at me like, what do you know about Purim?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, it's part of my heritage. And if you call yourself a Christian, it should be part of yours too. But I didn't go that deep. But
Yeah.
But it was, but that's part of who I am when I show up. So when you, again, once you start to embrace and live your fully dressed, authentic self, and it's always another layer, it's always developing. Why I gave you a real-time experience that I'm living through right now is because it's always happening. It's nonstop.
Right. And so this is one of the reasons that in my work with clients and also with my group, I work weekly. I have packages, certain different, and I used to have short packages, and now I have 6-month packages, and now I'm moving into 12 months because of
Mhm.
exactly what you just said. Confidence is not the type of thing that you attain and then you're done. In confidence coaching, it's really these little soul personas that in us that we have to, Monica just shared with us. It's like always, in progress. And that is true. I myself am extremely confident. Of course, I hope I would be. Does that make me supremely confident all the time about everything I do? No. I contacted a friend. I said, hey, I have an opportunity. I'm nervous about it. I'm not confident about it. and so and so really the basis of confidence coaching is an ongoing way with tools and systems and strategies of really self coaching. Now I want to invite Diane McClay into this conversation. Diane McClay is the choice and courage coach. Diane is insightful always, and I want to ask you, join the conversation. I just say to Diane, what would you like to say? And then I let her go.
Well, right now I'm confidently listening. I typically have a whiteboard brain where when someone feels like they're stuck or overwhelmed or they don't know where to get started or they have too many ideas going, I kind of see myself as that person who can just listen, and I can assimilate the information and I can connect the dots. And there's something magic that happens in my brain when I connect it to a story or a movie or an analogy or a metaphor, and then I'm able to churn it back out and give somebody something to start with. So I say that because there's an interesting happening right now where I'm not doing that. I'm actually fully engaged in this conversation, but there's a confidence that I feel in my body by just listening. And I think it's ironic. The banner behind me is a Cherokee prayer, and it talks about having the courage to say the right things at the right time. But the very last line, as you can see, is basically that there's peace in silence. And I kind of think that's a little ironic that we're talking about using our voice, and we're talking about when we've been quiet or when other people have silenced us. So I'm kind of just sort of sitting in this
Well,
beautiful
let me,
stew of confidence. And the word I looked up, I'm a word nerd, and confidence, con meaning Latin, meaning from, and the other part of it, fidance, is original Latin meaning to firmly trust, to be bold, to have full trust or reliance on. And I guess my takeaway is that I'm trusting that what I'm hearing is actually going to serve those little soul pieces that maybe I didn't know have been unreconciled.
well,
Monica, I want to know where you were 7 years ago when my employers had a decision they made. And there was a negative impact from that decision where I chose to resign. But for 10 weeks, I tried to have a conversation. And it wasn't until after I had been out of the game for a couple of years that I realized there wasn't even an opportunity for me to be heard. And Susan, I know you're trying to jump in here because I'm saying a lot.
yeah, that's
So I'm
okay.
going to turn it back to you.
Yeah, I thank you so much. I want to address the Cherokee saying of silence, right? You said, silence and listening. And to bring it back to what you're talking about here, confidence often stems from an ability to be silent, to get quiet, right? To quiet the brain, quiet the nervous system, quiet the energy, and listen to hear the truth and our truths, plural, our truths, right? Plural. And so that's where I would go with that, Diane. But I also love how you just said, you realized in this conversation, there may be soul personas in you that you weren't kind of tuned in with. And so Diane is a woman of nature. I know that about Diane, like nature is her, she may have whiteboard brain, but nature is your space to be, right? And so when you have an opportunity that's comfortable for you, not scary, you can just be like, who are those inner soul personas? Which ones do I want to clear? You don't have to work with a confidence coach or any kind of coach. You have an ability, nature serves, right? One of my taglines is nature soothing the soul. But that's to me where the silence comes in. And, also for Monica to have gotten to a place, there had to have been some silence, Monica, that you had to like get to some quiet to be at some point along the way to be able to confidently say, what was it? There's no, a decision has been made already. There is no conversation to have. And so that's Diane. That's how I would kind of pull that together, that piece on silence. My life changed in the day when I was working in a committed, intentional way to move away from my type A personality that had me so out of balance on the masculine energy side, which I was great at, by the way, till I had an emotional breakdown. And then through medication and therapy and various things and learning the journey, listening to other people speaking about getting quiet and breathing and all of that, that's how I developed I didn't, nobody teaches you to be a confidence coach. I'm in my intuition space. And it evolved intuitively from the nature of the work where I was just showing up to work with women in the second half of life. So Denise, let me bring it back around to you and see how are we doing with time? Where do you want to go with this? I could do this forever.
We're doing well. It's 12:44. If we have more conversation, let's continue the conversation for another 10 minutes. If not, we can reconvene at another time too.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure we were on time. I'm not the timekeeper when I'm speaking. So, so do we understand the benefit of, feeling the feeling of confidence? And do we understand that we can be supremely confident in one area and unconfident in another area? And if we extrapolate, why am I supreme? If we get a little quiet, you breathe, you square, you do your work and understand what makes me feel confident in this area. For example, Monica, I haven't had the pleasure of knowing you, so I'm going to use Diane because I've been working with Diane for a while in another group. So Diane, you have that confidence when you're in nature. When you talk about the whiteboard brain, that's where you intuitively show up confidently. You know that you can hear people and go, on the whiteboard and then say back to them, pathway, like you speak in pathway language back to them. And that's where you're supremely confident. I assume I see it that way, but there's other ways that you're not. And so what is it about that thing? And how can we draw that over here and here and here? Do you understand what I'm saying?
You're asking me that to paraphrase, I think you say I have an awareness that I have a confidence in one area, and I may or may not have a awareness that I don't have a confidence in another area. So how do I pull the components of confidence from the one thing into the other?
Well, most of us,
is that the question?
Well, most of us are aware that we lack confidence in another area. And yes, how do we extrapolate and pull from one area to another?
For me, I think it's about trusting the experience that you have. And that's being able to say that from being on the other side. Nothing I have ever failed at has I mean, it didn't cause a war, right? Nobody died. I didn't die. Nothing I have, when things go horrible, I mean, my joke is when things go horribly wrong, at least you have a good story,
Yeah.
right? And never have I not had a good story when something, I mean, it's just true, right? So humor, I think, is a piece of the pulling over, the grace of knowing that, so you say trying is failing, and I say trying is failing forward. Thomas Edison, that's another example I use. A lot of people say he failed at making the light bulb 999 times. He says that he succeeded in finding 999 ways to do something different.
Correct.
Right. And so that goes to another thing. It's about perspective. I think some of what you do as a confidence coach and what the other experts do in Living Healthy list is that we engage perspective. We ask questions. We get people to look at things from a different lens. This is what you're doing with your inner soul work, is we're so used to looking at things from the one lens, literally from our two eyes with blinders on in a straightforward direction, either because that's what we've been trained to do, told to do, or that's what we're expected to do. And a lot of people don't really encourage us to stop and pause and pivot and look at something from a different perspective. From today's conversation, I don't know much about what you and Monica were talking about Pyram. That's going to now be something that I'd like to engage either of you in a conversation with later on so I can learn. So I think there's a couple steps. You have to have awareness that you don't have something. I think the two words on my wall, you have to have the courage to step into it. You have to make a choice to say, this is important to me today, or it's not important to me today. And then what am I going to do about it? And how do I want to feel? Susan, you and I have talked about that offline before. Those are two really good, powerful questions. So for me, I think it's about trusting that the experience that I have, whether it feels good or bad, is there to serve me. I think that's part of the bringing it into balance piece.
I love trusting the experience I've had. The evolution of my business, totally unexpected. I had a whole other career, a really great, fantastic career that I loved. That was wonderful. And I still work in that career as well. But the evolution of my business has had to do with trusting my experience and my willingness to go in and go deep with myself, like I just said to Monica before, to examine the experiences and ask these types of questions that you're just asking, Diane. And then confidence happened because when I did work with people in coaching and I asked them, like I asked Denise rather early in our conversation, how have you felt when you've been in conversation with me? Have you ever felt more confident? She said 100% of the time. That's how we rise. Monica's sharing with us the idea of, I loved what you said about the weight loss. And you said weight loss is not about the scale. And you also shared with me something I didn't know about your own weight loss journey. You had, and then you shared the beautiful piece on understanding how these layers, come up to cover that whatever one or multiple incidents you experienced. And that does often show itself as weight, WEIGHT. I find that very much as well. And so, I really love this conversation. And one of the takeaways that I want people to have is to understand that there are these, you can call it an inner child persona, you can call it an inner being, you can call it thoughts that you have. The terms negative limiting beliefs to me are lingo-y. I don't use that term myself. It happens I don't use those terms in my coaching because each one of those limiting beliefs, honestly, is to me, in my experience, a soul persona that became a thought. And so I'm in thought and mindset transformation, just bringing in these experiences, which Diane, I love the idea that you can trust You learn to trust the experience that you've had and that they're moving you forward. I call that iterations. I don't use pivot that much, but I call it like iterations. You know, Thomas Edison, iterate, 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 right? In business. And I teach this in business as well. So I want to really invite our friends, our listeners, our viewers to understand all of this is within you. You can hire a confidence coach if you want. You can hire many experts in Living Healthy List. But when you're ready, you can work with this yourself. All right, Denise, back to you. Let's pull it together.
Back to me. Hello again, everyone. This has been a great conversation. You know, confidence is one of the things as women that we always seem to be lacking or fighting. And I think we've learned a lot today that it is within ourselves. And yes, you can work with a coach, work with several coaches, but it is inside of you. And so I think for me, that was one of the pieces that I will bring from today. Also, the idea that a limiting belief actually is not just a limiting belief, but it really is something that you've learned in the past where that you're just kind of iterating, you know, there's something back there, but I'm not that same person anymore. And so those iterations have brought me to where I am today. And maybe that iteration, I'm stuck with it for a minute, but knowing that and recognizing that is that first step to overcoming it and becoming much more confident in that. So I want to thank everyone for joining us here live. For those of you who are watching the replay, we'll be back here for Free Coaching Friday on April 1st, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. Our coach will be, or our expert will be Lori Bryant-Woolridge. And Lori is our amazing, amazing relationship and love coach. She does so much more. She really does focus on, when we talk about love and that relationship, it's who is that relationship, the most important relationship with? It starts with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is the next time we will be together here live. I will put in the notes here in Zoom how you can connect with us, jump on, become part of the conversation here, get coaching, understand what coaching is through Free Coaching Friday. And any questions, you can certainly connect with me directly at support@livinghealthylist.com. You can find us on livinghealthylist.com as well. You can find us on YouTube where with our podcast, which is called The Wonder Series, which is another opportunity for you to think outside the box and wonder what life would be like if you looked at those opportunities and opened yourself up to the possibilities. So thank you again, Susan. Thank you. That's always amazing. I feel much more confident than I did even coming into this. I always do when I have these conversations with you. Monica, it's always a pleasure to have you here and have you join us and really participate. You teach us as much as we teach you. Diane, of course, thank you. Thank you for everything that you bring. I always have a bunch of notes. Diane always brings us a couple of amazing bullet points to take home, and I will make sure all of those are in the show notes as well. So thank you again for being here for Free Coaching Friday. We will see you next time. Till then, I leave you with this: healthy living, happy life, everyone.
Take care. Thanks, Denise.
Thank you.